It took nature roughly 7,000 years and countless tons of Mississippi River sediment to build Southeast Louisiana. But since the 1930s, Louisiana has lost over 2,000 square miles of land, primarily because of human intervention. You are about to experience how Southeast Louisiana came to be, how it evolved, how it devolved, and what the future holds if action is not taken immediately. The area that became Southeast Louisiana evolved radically throughout the ages. The engine of change has primarily been the Mississippi River. We begin this tour of Louisiana's geological history using a map similar to most maps seen today in atlases, depicting a vibrant, healthy-looking, yet deceptive coastline. And we'll explain why most modern maps are deceptive shortly. But for now, we'll travel back in time 6,000 years. Most of Southeast Louisiana did not exist. What would become New Orleans was underwater just south of the coastline. Lake Pontchartrain was not a lake at all, but primarily dry land carved up by a system of rivers and streams. About 4,600 years ago, glaciers left over from the Ice Age were still melting, and the sea level was rising across the globe, nearing its modern-day elevation. This change sparked the birth of the barrier island known as Pine Island, and a small bay took shape, which would later become Lake Pontchartrain. 300 years later, the Mississippi River changed course toward New Orleans. The Pontchartrain Bay continued to grow as rising sea level slowed. Pine Island enlarged westward toward the approaching Mississippi River. 4,000 years ago, what's known as the St. Bernard Delta of the Mississippi River nearly connected with Pine Island and closed off Pontchartrain Bay from the Gulf of Mexico. For more than 3,000 years, the mighty Mississippi's St. Bernard Delta dumped river sediment into the shallow Gulf Coast waters, building up land as far east as what's known today as the Chandeleur Islands. The Mississippi River is a dynamic land builder. Without its nutrient-rich water, the land starves and disappears. 2,000 years ago, this phenomenon happened when the river changed course again, this time toward present-day Lafourche Parish. During that period, the St. Bernard Delta was being robbed of sediment, which sparked the land loss that left behind the Chandeleur Islands. 1,000 years ago, the river diverted back toward the east, creating the modern Plaquemines Delta. New Orleans was founded in 1718. From the start, levees were constructed to keep the Mississippi River from overtopping its banks and flooding the area, as it did nearly every spring. As the city grew, it became lined with man-made canals to control water and transform swamp into neighborhoods. But in order to protect the blossoming city from storms and swollen rivers, more levees had to be built and existing ones had to be raised. By the 1900s, Southeast Louisiana began to suffer the consequences of civilization. Most maps you'll find today of Louisiana still depict a 1930s coastline, a deceptive false sense of security. In the 1930s, the lay of the land protecting New Orleans from the Gulf of Mexico was still vast and healthy-looking at a glance. But on the surface, trouble was afoot because of levees, man-made waterways, subsidence, saltwater intrusion, invasive species, and sea level rise. Louisiana is currently losing approximately 24 square miles of wetlands per year, which is roughly one football field every 45 minutes. From 1932 to 2000, Louisiana lost nearly 2,000 square miles of land, bringing the Gulf of Mexico uncomfortably closer every day to residents' backyards. From 2004 to 2005, an additional 217 square miles of wetlands was washed away, most of which from Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. If nothing is done to stop the devastating rate of land loss, geologists predict an additional 700 square miles will disappear by 2020. Leaving cities like New Orleans sitting in open water, protected only by the levees that played a major role in sparking the land loss.